In episode 14, I used the example of an animated multi-layer composite shot to demonstrate the use of composite shot embedding. The example was a fairly complex animated lower third. This demonstrated the principle of composite shot embedding, but it wasn't very practical. As I explained in that episode, a composite shot that's embedded with other composite shots can't be saved and used as a template. The lower third will be used many times in a project, so for productivity reasons, it's important that individual elements of the lower third can be modified easily for each occurrence. The method used in episode 14 doesn't satisfy that criteria. In this episode, I'll demonstrate a way that the same lower third can be created, which can be saved as a template. To save time, I've imported the composite shot from episode 14 that contains the individual layers for the lower third. In the import dialog, I deselected the lower third composite, as I'll only be needing the composite with the lower third layers. Because this composite shot will be saved as a template, I'll rename it Lower Third Expand and Collapse. In episode 14, I embedded this composite shot into another one, the parent, then animated the parent. In this episode, I'm going to introduce a point layer and animate that. So, I'll add a point layer and name it Animation. As this layer will control the overall animation, I need to parent all the other layers to it. Now any change I make to the point layer will affect all the other layers. The first thing to do is position the lower third. Now for the animation. You'll remember that this is achieved by keyframing the transform parameters. In episode 14, the animation simply expanded the lower third vertically, then contracted it. I want to modify it slightly by first expanding it horizontally, then vertically. As in that episode, I'll be keyframing the scale parameter, with its chain link broken. At the start of the timeline, I want the lower third to be fully collapsed vertically and horizontally. So I'll set both scale X and scale Y parameters to 0. At the 20 frame mark, I want the animation to start. I want the lower third to expand vertically slightly, then fully horizontally, then fully vertically. Now I need it to expand fully horizontally over 3 frames. The lower third will now expand fully vertically in 5 frames. Let's check that out. That's the intro done. Now for the outro. This is done by using the existing keyframe sequence in reverse. Probably the easiest way of doing this is to copy all the keyframes and paste just after the last one. They can then all be transposed so that the first one becomes the last, and so on. To make it a little easier, I'll make sure that the first copied keyframe is at the 2-second mark. Now I know that the whole animation lasts 1 second and 5 frames, so I'll move the first keyframe to the 5-second mark. The next keyframe will be at 5 seconds minus 20 frames. The next one at 4 seconds and 3 frames. The next at 4 seconds. The final one at 3 seconds and 20 frames. Now that all the keyframes are in their correct relative positions, I can lasso them all and move them to the end of the composite shot. Don't forget that the last keyframe must be located 1 frame back from the end. In this situation it's not critical, but it's a good idea to get into the habit. Whether you change the interpolation mode for each keyframe is down to personal preference. If you're unfamiliar with interpolation modes, check out episode 8. Okay, so that's the animated lower third completed. Now I need to publish a few parameters so I can save it as a template. I explained how to do this in episode 7 part 1. As well as being able to modify the text string, which is essential for a lower third, I want the text background and the border colors to be configurable. I'll first publish the text layer. Now, it's not possible to publish the colour of a plain layer, but what I can do is to add an appropriate effect to the layers and publish that. The effect I'll use is the fill colour effect. The default fill colour is white, so I'll change this to blue. Now to publish these two fill colours. All that's needed now is to save the composite shot as a template. There's a specific sequence of operations needed to do this. If you're not sure how, refer to episode 7 part 1. I shall leave the template thumbnail at default for now. I can now select templates and the saved template will be displayed in the template list. With the template on the timeline and selected, I can modify some parameters. An important one, of course, is the text string. At the bottom of the controls panel, you'll see the published parameters. Select the Edit New Text button and the text will be highlighted ready for modification. Here I can also change the colours of the text background and border. Note that you can modify the composite shot further if needed. For example, if the lower third isn't in the position you want, you can adjust the transform properties and it won't affect the animation. You can even reduce the size if it's too big. Note also that, like any other clip, masks and effects can be applied if required. If you've watched episode 14, you'll realize that both methods require similar effort to create the lower third animation. The big advantage of this method is the ability to save the composite shot as a template containing published parameters. This template can then be used many times on the timeline, each one having different text strings and possibly different published parameter attributes. Hopefully you found this episode useful. If you have, please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. If you have subscribed, thank you. Until the next time, bye for now.